Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carter Walker and I am comfy. Let me tell you that right now. Today, I'm going to go over my top 5 worst movies of 2023. While I'm doing that, the reason why I look so goofy right now is because I got this for my birthday and it is comfy. I film a lot of my TikTok reviews in it just because I do it when I'm working or doing homework, and it is absolutely freezing here in the winter. So it's like 12 degrees right now, and I'm sitting comfy with this thing on, let me tell you. Now, obviously, this list is just my opinion. It's just my perspective list. There's some movies that definitely deserve to be on here. There's some movies that don't. I'm going to be honest. There's about 2 or 3 movies on here that are actually very well made. It's just my personal experience with the film, my personal subjectivity, and my opinion and like of the movie was just extremely low, a lot lower than other movies. Some people will definitely put a lot of the 2023 comic book movies on this list, and I will be the first to admit, as a huge comic book fan, huge Marvel, DC superhero fan, that the movies were definitely a step down this year. However, I do think that what was bad was pretty bad, but also some people aren't giving a lot of it credit. Anyways, that's a whole nother spiel I'll get into. A few honorable mentions for my top 5 worst. I'm going to go with Five Nights at Freddy's. This was a movie that was made for the fans, and I'm not a fan of the video games. I don't really care for them. I don't really care for the lore. It's not very interesting to me. And so when I went and saw this movie, the story was a jumbled mess with a lot of things that were left unexplained and were muddled. Things didn't make any sense. It wasn't very scary. Matthew Lillard, of course, is always enjoyable. But I do think that the main plot line kind of distracted from the animatronics. And there's a few scenes in here, like the animatronics massacring people and then building tables and stuff. And it's like, actually, you don't get it. They're just kids. It's like, well, that scene just feels out of place in a screenplay, so why don't they switch it around? And it would make more sense because as the film is moving forward, ramping up, tension is building, the animatronics are getting more dangerous, but then you kind of just lose that tension. Anyways, whole other spiel for another time. Our next honorable mention is going to be Hell House LLC Origins Carmichael Manor. Long title. But I'm not a fan of found footage flicks, and so that explains why I wasn't really a fan of this one. I found it to be a little bit overlong, a little bit drawn out. The tension wasn't really there. And honestly, I didn't really care for the characters. I just found their personalities a little grating, and it wasn't quite scary. Also, I am feeling a little bit under the weather, so if I'm shifting a lot, if my voice sounds different, if there's weird edits, probably because I'm coughing or my muscles are super, super tired. I'm achy. A few other honorable mentions I'll throw out. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I was excited for it. I love Aquaman 1. Aquaman 2 is a total letdown, total misfire. Everything about it was pretty terrible. The only reason it's not on this list is because I think sometimes it veers into so bad that it's good, and it was memorable because of how terrible it was, whereas some other movies on this list are completely unmemorable. Enough of that. Getting right into my number 5 worst movie of the year, it's going to be No One Will Save You. And this is one of those movies I mentioned at the very beginning where I think that the quality is decent. It's very well made. The main actress, I believe it's Caitlin Dever, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. She does a very good job. And the movie's gimmick is that there's not a lot of dialogue. She's mute. She's all by herself in this farmhouse, all alone. Well, I found the first act of the first half to be good. I was enjoying what I was watching. It was interesting enough. I wasn't super pulled in, honestly. The lack of dialogue really didn't quite work for me. And as the movie went on, I found the tension less and less prominent in the movie. The aliens weren't very well designed. It's a great looking movie. The sound design is great. However, the aliens look so terrible. And then everything that just occurs after like the first act, first half, really did not interest me. Really went off the rails. A bunch of story decisions, creative decisions that I just didn't really understand or agree with, I guess is the more correct term. I didn't really agree with them. It didn't really kind of make sense in my head. I just didn't feel like the choices in the last half of the movie really paid off. And so a lot of the tension fell flat for me. A lot of the mystery with her past and the aliens didn't work for me at all. The ending I found, in my opinion, again, to be just absolutely terrible. I understand this is a very controversial placement. A lot of people really liked this movie. Someone from my film program just messaged me and said, "Hey, have you seen this?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they said, "I loved it. I think you'd really like it." And I was like, how do I tell her? Anyways, if you like this movie, I totally understand why. It just wasn't for me. I was pretty let down by it. Number 4 is going to be Shazam Fury of the Gods. And I don't know what to say. This is a movie where I saw it in March. I have a really excellent memory when it comes to movies. My memory, I've been hit in the head so many times playing football. My memory is pretty bad. When it comes to movies and movies I've seen, I'm really good with remembering details and what happens in movies. This was a movie that was just so bland and forgettable and so generic and safe. I forgot completely. I was thinking about the worst movies of the year about 2, 3 months ago, and this kept popping up in my mind. I was like, why is it so bad? I can't remember. And I just kept putting it off and putting it off, and it sat in the middle of my list the whole year. And as more movies came out, I was like, yeah, I don't really remember Shazam, drag it to the bottom. And that just kept happening. It ended up at number 4. This is a movie to where I love the first Shazam movie, one of my favorite DC films, and Asher Angel, Zachary Levi, Jack Dylan Grazer all do a tremendous job with their performances in the first one. In the second one, I feel like it's just Jack Dylan Grazer and Adam Brody that do good. Asher Angel really doesn't get a lot of time to shine, and when he is Billy, he feels more mature and more relatable than when he's Shazam. Zachary Levi plays up the hamminess, corniness, stupidity, and immaturity of Shazam times 100 from the first film when he is Shazam in this movie, which is quite a big chunk. And it makes it a lot less relatable from the first one and almost cheapens the emotion that you get from the first one. Coming into it, seeing the family was an interesting dynamic. However, I just feel like they don't really do a lot with the family in this one. Ends up just being generic, and I found everything to be lackluster, which is a shame. I enjoy David F. Sandberg as a director. I've enjoyed his other films, but this one just really doesn't do it for me, and so unfortunately, it comes out near the bottom. And I just think that they played it way too safe. If they had done something, anything to make it interesting, apart from adding Wonder Woman to resurrect Shazam in the end, oh, give me a break. This movie was just so bland, so forgettable that I've literally exhausted everything in my power to talk about it right now. I don't think the jokes were as funny. I just remember it being a lot less good than the first one, a lot worse. That's a better phrase to put it. A lot worse than the first one. And when I first watched it, I was overly positive on it. And it's a review that, looking back on, there's a lot of my reviews that I'm like, I am not that positive on this movie. It's a movie to where it was $10 on sale at Best Buy on Black Friday, and I didn't buy it. That's all I gotta say. Coming in at number 3 is gonna be a very controversial pick. If any of those fans ever watch this video, it's Leave the World Behind, the new Netflix thriller that came out last month, I believe. And this is a movie to where I did my review and I was getting flamed on social media. This one lady said, I'm a screenwriter. This movie does its job. You just don't understand it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, what have you written? Because I was genuinely curious. And she said, I don't like to talk about that on social media. And I was like, I went to her page and it's just her trying out different filters. I was like, look, man, you can do whatever you want, but something's not adding up here. Sometimes people just like to spread misinformation on the internet. She might have been one of them. But this is a movie to where I watched it and I had no clue what was happening the whole time. Everyone in this movie just feels like their performance is just so aggravating, and they just feel like they're like, before they shot, the director made them walk a mile in glass, so when they shoot they just seem so aggravated at everybody. Mahershala Ali is the only saving grace in this film, along with the camera angles and like the dynamic fluidity, wow, I can't talk, of the camera and the movement saved it for me as well. This is a movie to where I really did not enjoy it, and I think everyone here just doesn't really give a good performance. Maybe they try their best, but the material that is provided is just so bland. Its obsession with friends is annoying after about 5 minutes, and everyone, I honestly don't understand the love for this movie. I'm gonna be honest. If you like it, respect. Everyone has their own opinion, but for me, I just couldn't get behind it. It just planted too many red herrings along the way. And I know that it's supposed to be like, this is the confusion people would feel at the end of the world. This is the confusion. No one knows what's happening. This is happening. That's happening. I just found it to be like, let's put all these insufferable characters together and just watch everything play out, and then no one knows what's happening. It was so unsatisfying. The characters were very annoying. The plot unraveled at a snail's pace, and I didn't find the slow burn approach to be that effective. The first opening scene is so, it's just so awkwardly written. Everyone's line delivery, like, and you know what I realized? I hate people. I'm like, what? Like, Julia Roberts, doesn't she have Oscars or Oscar or nominated? It just feels awkward, and it was a movie to where it's well made. I can respect it in the technical aspect. For the creative aspect, I couldn't get behind this one. I don't think it was that good at all, honestly. Real quick, before I do my top 2, there was quite a few movies that I didn't get to see this year. I just was really, really busy. So there's movies that probably would have ended up on my top 10 best, or would have ended up here, or somewhere in the middle, most likely. But movies like The Covenant, Operation Fortune, Wonka, Beau is Afraid, Past Lives, Maestro, May December, Silent Night, The Holdovers. Sorry, I'm just staring at my screen. No Hard Feelings, Bottoms, Blackberry, and Rebel Moon, which, from what I hear, probably would end up on this list. I didn't get to check those out in the future. I probably will. But yeah, just as of this video, I just wanted to let you know if there's a movie that's terrible, you're thinking is terrible, didn't make it on this list, probably because I just didn't watch it, or maybe I was a little bit nicer than you'd expect. But coming in at number 2, that is going to be The Nun 2. And this is another movie like Shazam 2 where I just have no idea what to say about it. Very forgettable, very bland. Valak is creepy enough, and the newsstand jump scare is well done. Other than that, I didn't really enjoy this movie a whole lot. Ended up falling near the bottom of my horror movie rankings because there's just no excuse. It's a high budget horror film from a prominent studio in Hollywood. I mean, it is a sequel to The Nun 1, so there is that excuse. But I found it a little bit more enjoyable than The Nun 1, but not by much. It just really didn't have a lot to say. The whole film is like hiding plot reveals from the characters that we as an audience already know, so it kind of makes it exhausting instead of tense, where it's like, oh, when are they going to find out? It's like, oh my gosh, can they just find out so they can perform an exorcism or kill him already? And so at the end, I found it very underwhelming. I didn't find the final boss fight, it felt like the final exorcism boss fight, to be all that interesting or gripping. I found the movie to be very underwhelming in scares and plot and character overall. I am glad to see a little bit of a globe-trotting aspect and a lot more kills. However, at the end of the day, I just found myself disappointed and really not into this one. Coming in at number 1 of the worst movie that I saw this year, it's The Exorcist Believer. If this was done by an independent studio, it would still be bad. I'm going to be honest. If it was done by like independent filmmakers or like a smaller studio, okay, credit where credit is due. You crafted a movie that's pretty well made technically, but everything on the creative side is just pretty poorly made. It's poorly done, and especially by Blumhouse, the people that wrote Halloween 2018 made it. There's no excuse. They made one of my favorite movies of all time with Halloween 2018. Controversial opinion, I know. But I was like, okay, kind of weird because the people that did Halloween doesn't really make sense to do The Exorcist. Very, very different source material. I was interested to see how it would tackle the themes of Christianity and faith and like loss of faith, regaining faith. And it just drops all that. There's not really a focus on Christianity here. There's not a focus on faith here. It's just very like, ooh, scary Exorcist. And it's very tame, very neutered compared to the first Exorcist. And what drags this film down to the absolute bottom of the list is its blatant disrespect for its source material and the original Exorcist from 40 years ago. It absolutely craps on two of the characters, Father Karras and Father Marin, I believe are their names, from the first Exorcist, the heroes of the first Exorcist, who perform the exorcism on Regan and end up dying in brutal ways. And oh my gosh, what's her name? The mom from The Exorcist. I can't believe I forgot that. The mom from The Exorcist is talking, and she's like, "The patriarchy wouldn't let me watch the exorcism of my own daughter." Like, oh, the patriarchy who sacrificed their lives for your daughter. Those two patriarchies, those two priests that stayed with your daughter and died in horrible ways by themselves to help your daughter, and then you drove off at the end of the movie with her. Those two guys, they just didn't watch. I wonder why. There must have been some reason for that, right? So it's like stuff like that just bothers me. Anyways, I don't know. On the mom character, they just completely shaft her. She gets sidelined. She's in for like a few scenes, and this movie really just exists. Has nothing to do with the Exorcist universe, which shouldn't really be a universe. Has nothing to do with any of them other than the fact that there's a possession and it has the mom in it, and that's it. Hey, David Gordon Green, you just made Halloween pretty successful financially. Here's a dump truck of money, and here's the Exorcist rights. That's all we got. Go ahead. It just doesn't work. So overall, The Exorcist Believer, very few scares that actually worked. There's like one or two jump scares that got me, but this is a movie that I've definitely soured on over time. Where I'm like, wow, the blatant disrespect for the source material for the original film is just appalling to me. To where I haven't even seen the first Exorcist until this year, and I liked it so much I went out and bought it. And then you see The Exorcist Believer, and it's just so bad, and it just sidelines Christianity. It treats religion with distaste, and at the end, it's like, why can't we all just work together to do an exorcism and believe in ourselves? And I'm like, the whole point of these movies is Christianity and religion and faith in God. That's just me, though. I am a very religious person, and usually I don't take offense, but this one just felt super weird to me, and I didn't really enjoy it. So The Exorcist Believer is the worst movie that I watched in 2023. But yeah, that was my top 5 worst movies of the year. There were some movies on here that were very well made again, but I just didn't prefer. Let me know down in the comments below what your top 5 worst movies are. And as always, my name is Carter. Have a great rest of your day.